Welcome to Health, Wellbeing and Lifestyle, where experts in the field inform, educate and inspire the community to be healthier, more balanced and live the lifestyle they love. Our first guest today, Sue Williams, is a doctor of quantum counselling and a clinical hypnotherapist, and the topic we'll be discussing is being stuck in your head and 5 pro tips how to break free. Welcome, Sue.
Thank you, Megan. It's great to be here again.
Sue, can you give us 5 tips on how to build mental resilience?
Certainly. The very first thing is to realise what it is that you need to overcome. So if I'm dealing with sports people, they will come to me and tell me, I have this absolute mental block. For example, a basketballer, I'm there doing the free throws, miss every time. This person has realised they have a problem. They know what it is, but they just don't know how to overcome it. So that's the first thing. You need to realise what that problem is so that you can actually go and change it. And then the second one is setting the goal for what you want to change. So it is a goal. In this example, the basketballer wants to get the correct mindset so that every time he's standing on the line, bounce, bounce, straight through. And just a tip that I give the basketballers, being very specific here, is imagine that hoop is this big. How can you miss? And that's part of the goal setting, because then you can visualise what that huge hoop is. So that's a really good tip, and you can customise that to anything that you want to change. And of course, when we're talking about visualisation, everyone has a different learning style. A lot of people are visual. Also, people are auditory. So that particular basketballer will need to hear what the coach is saying, so that he knows exactly where his hands are placed, where his feet need to be. So he's hearing it, and then he's creating that, what with a visual person would be the visualisation. And we call this mental rehearsal because that takes in all aspects of different ways of learning. Okay, and then we move on to the kinesthetic learners. And kinesthetic people feel things. So they do feel emotions. Emotions will control their thoughts, but also they have the feelings in their body. So with our basketball example, that particular player, to overcome these, the missing the hoop continuously, they may need their coach to set them up physically in front of the hoop, standing on that free throw line. So this is the way your body should be to give it that perfect arc. The ball goes straight through the hoop every time. So they get in position and then they feel it through their body. They keep doing that. So that becomes their go-to position, and they know it's going to work. And then, of course, this is what we call mental rehearsal. And use that mental rehearsal to formulate your goals and then proceed with your particular learning style to work towards those goals. Moving on from our goal setting, we've got our goal, we've done our mental rehearsal, worked out exactly what we do to achieve that goal based on our learning style. And then we set up this routine and we prepare, we set aside time, and then we use that routine to practice that mental rehearsal over and over again. And that's what will separate the elite athletes from the weekend warriors. So it's the practice, practice, practice. That's what they do. Our goals can just be so airy-fairy if we don't plan and do the practice. They won't be attainable if you don't put in the work. And to help us achieve our goals, what we can do to get into that zone, not necessarily the zone we use for competing, but the zone where our imagination is alive, where we are focused on what we're going to do in our routine that day, is to develop a breathing practice. And breathing is amazing for a number of reasons. We're concentrating on the breathing, but it's also enabling us physically to bring in the oxygen, oxygenate ourselves, so that if we're a sports person, for example, our muscles are going to work. They're going to be well oxygenated. The blood will be flowing because we're breathing the correct way. And we breathe in through our nose. We do that so that the air actually gets warmed before it reaches our lungs. We breathe deep down into our abdomen. And we can tell if we're shallow breathing because we'll begin. If we're breathing deeply, breathe down into the abdomen. That actually gives us room for the lungs to be drawn down so that they can really fill with the air. So breathing in, and as you breathe in through your nose, have your tongue against the roof of your mouth. And that, for whatever reason, makes this breathing so much more effective. I'm not sure of the physical reason, but I know it makes it very effective. Breathing all the way down into your abdomen so that the lungs can fill completely. Hold it and then out through the mouth.
Any advice for our viewers?
Find a professional in whatever area of life your goal is. So if, for example, like the sports people who come to me, if they're looking for help, they seek my help using hypnosis and also other modalities that I'm qualified in to assist them with their mental well-being and their physical well-being. But also, if you're not sure if you're a sports person, find a good coach who'll be able to get your body set up in the perfect way for your particular sport. And mental health professionals, if you've got something that's happening in your life that you need help with, go to the professional. Don't try and work out these tricky things by yourself, because you'll get stuck in that spiral, that vicious cycle where you just don't overcome it, and you're stuck. You've got that mental block. So find the relevant professional, always the first step, and then see what they can do to help you, and you may be able to move on and do something else, set another goal.
Thanks, Sue. That's such valuable information. If you'd like to know more about Sue Williams and how to build mental toughness and get unstuck, please go to her webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. And after the break, we have another interesting guest with another interesting topic.
After the break, animal communicator and therapist Caroline Pope demystifies animal craniosacral therapy. Welcome back. Today we have Caroline Pope in the studio. She is an animal communicator and therapist, and today we are going to be demystifying animal craniosacral therapy. Hello, Caroline.
Hello, it's good to be back.
Yes. Now tell me, can you explain what animal craniosacral therapy is?
Pretty much the same as human craniosacral therapy. A lot of people will know it as CST for short. Derived from osteopathy. It's a very hands-on therapy, but literally the most pressure you're putting on is that of a 5-cent piece. So it's much more allowing the body what it needs to do rather than trying to force the body, because what a therapist thinks the body needs to do versus what the body knows it needs to do can kind of be a bit like the Montagues and the Capulets, really. So the most pressure I'm putting on is literally that of a 5-cent piece. And I often say to my clients, it's like watching paint dry, because they're just sitting and the dog or cat may close its eyes, it may lay down. You're not seeing much. But what's actually going on internally, there's a lot of recalibrating, and it's really, really big. If you ever have a CST yourself, you're going to feel a difference. And that's why I actually collaborate with a vet, because she will bounce information to me, or I will say to her, "Yeah, not quite sure about X or Y, can you please check that out?" Because no one person can fix everything. And often if I'm feeling restrictions, say for example in the spine, everything runs off the spine. So the moment the animal's movement is compromised, so is its digestion, its elimination. Dog may well be having heart problems, for example. All the nerves for the heart innervate out of the parietal bone and go down through the thoracic. So if your dog's got problems in its thoracic area or the parietal bone's jammed, that makes a huge difference to what the dog's heart is doing, and its medication may need to be adjusted. Everything interreacts with everything else. It's the one body. We're past the days of saying, this is good for the heart. The fact that your liver's going to keel over in 6 months has got nothing to do with it. It's that integrative, holistic approach.
And how did you get into it and why?
Started with cranial for myself because I had thyroid problems at the time and really, really bad migraines. And CST actually got rid of them. I was literally being injected every second day with really heavy duty stuff, didn't need anything. Because I'm me, I pushed my therapist to work on a horse I had at the time, and I'd had him for, I think, 6 years by that stage. Great horse, but he'd always been tetchy to put a bridle on. Deb released his temporals, which are temporal bones, which are basically releasing around the ears. And from that day on, I never had another issue with a bridle. And of course, that got my very instant and undivided attention. Started exploring it, spoke to a few clients about it, but unfortunately, I wasn't able to afford it at the time. Had a phone call one day, picked it up, and it was one of the clients. They'd banded together and went, right, you're going to owe us X amount of CSTs. There's a course coming up. This is where it is. We've paid for it. Off you go. So I was incredibly lucky. And from the first day, I was just hooked.
And can you explain exactly what it is you do?
Animal will come in. I also use a bioenergetic handheld device because it speeds things up and it helps calm the animal, because no animal likes being on a table. I mean, obviously horses aren't going to go on a table. That's a little different. But most animals don't like heights in the same way I'm terrified of it. So it helps. And it's literally a hands-on therapy. I can start sometimes at the back end. Other times I'll start with one hand under the chest or the neck or the head. It really depends on the individual animal and also where they're comfortable, because a lot of animals, particularly dogs, can be quite head shy. Or if their neck's really sore, they're not going to want you putting hands on, and trust is earned. It's not given. And if a dog's got a really big problem, or any animal at one end, starting at the other builds up trust and releases the restriction. So by the time you get to where the problem really is, they're not worried. And a lot of the time they'll literally lie down and just pass out, which is really nice.
And what sort of ailments do you treat?
Pretty much anything in the age bracket. Arthritis, stiffness, can help with a lot of dogs that start getting lack of proprioception and neurological as they get older. Vestibular disease in dogs and cats is a big one. Epilepsy, pretty much encephalitis, pretty much anything, because it improves health. It's no different to you. It's being proactive rather than reactive. And of course, the earlier you can get to something, you really need to be proactive. And long term, it's cheaper too to be proactive rather than reactive. I say to people, change of seasons, but you may well find that your dog or cat needs one session a week if they're acute or it's been let go for a really long time, for 4 or 5 weeks, and you may get down to 1 trip a month. But if you stretch it out to 6 weeks, you might be back to where you are. And it's not fair to our animal friends to leave them in pain when we can make some lifestyle adjustments and change the quality of life so very, very much. Because at the end of the day, quantity is great, don't get me wrong. We all want our animals to live to an old age. But if there's no quality, it's all irrelevant. And this is where holistic health and, in my case, craniosacral therapy makes such a difference. It's about the quality of life. And the more we can do to improve that, the happier everyone is.
And can you please give us some advice on how to have a healthy and happy animal?
Be proactive. I generally say every change of season, as they start to age from about the age of 6, possibly 4 with the larger dogs, because of course there's all the rate of aging. But just stuff like all your moodle oodles and anything with hair under the pads, trim it back, because otherwise it's like you walking in socks instead of bare feet. They slide, they hurt themselves. Tiles, floating floor, timber laminate, polished floorboards, really bad for dogs and aged cats. I know they're a pain, but carpet runners are your best friend, and they can literally, in a lot of cases, be the difference between an animal being on painkillers and not, because every time they slide or scrabble, that's all we see, they experience a lot of pain. Just getting your flooring right, that's where your dog or cat spends 80 to 90% of their time. It makes a huge difference.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us today, Caroline. That was really interesting and very educational. For those interested in learning more about Caroline Pope and animal craniosacral therapy, please head to her webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au, and hang around for after the break. We have another amazing guest. Stay tuned. After the break, barbecue cook and healthy food advocate Sarah Kiryshin will be talking about healthy food for today's busy people. Welcome back to Health, Wellbeing and Lifestyle. We are here again with Sarah Kiryshin, barbecue cook and healthy food advocate, continuing our discussion about healthy food for today's busy people. And Sarah, this looks like you've brought a party into the studio, and I can't wait to hear more about it. It looks so delicious.
Amazing. Well, this is my favorite, my go-to, my crowd pleaser. When I am doing a barbecue, this is what I get out every single time. It is, I know I go on a lot about making sure that barbecue is always easy, but in this case, it is so quick and so easy, and I've never met someone that doesn't enjoy it. It is just delicious.
Please explain what we have here.
Okay, so what we have is, I'll talk about these amazing little triangles here. So we've got lamb mince in pita bread in its simplest form. However, me being me, I always like to bam up my meals a little bit. So with the lamb mince, what I do is I pop in some tomatoes, some onion, some Mediterranean and Middle Eastern spices, such as sumac, Aleppo peppers. They can be a little hard to get hold of, but we can pop in a few other inspired herbs and spices. So a bit of paprika is amazing in there, some parsley, some garlic. Mince it up, smear it in a pita bread and pop it on the barbecue. It is sublime every single time.
Do you cook the mince before you put it in the pita bread?
No. So you'd be surprised. It can be a little bit surprising when you do cook it because it cooks so easily. You just kind of get one large pita bread, smear half of it with the raw lamb mince mixture, fold the pita bread over, straight on a barbecue with a bit of oil.
Yum.
So good. Next to the lamb pitas, we have smashed potatoes. These are, again, a crowd pleaser. They're delicious, and I am a little bit sneaky with this dish. You can exclude it, but I like to baste mine in some butter, and I put a bit of paprika in the butter as well. So it infuses through the potatoes as they're cooking. Just continue to gently baste them with a little bit of that butter. If you want to get really fancy, you can get a few stalks of rosemary and use that to baste the potatoes, and it adds even more flavour again. So the absolute best combination to have with this dish is my loaded yoghurt. Then I bam it up with some of my secret ingredients. So let me talk you through what we have. Now, lemon. Very simple, very straightforward. The acidity helps cut through any fats or any, umami flavors for the barbecue, and it complements everything perfectly. We'll pop that there. So my secret ingredient, people always ask me how I manage to get so much flavour into the food that I cook. Often I use preserved lemons. They're salty, they're super powerful in flavour, and they just make every dish so much more delicious. So I pop in the preserved lemons. I've got some grated garlic here because, hello, garlic makes everything taste better. Then what I have, this is a combination of 3 herbs. Use whatever's handy. This is mint, parsley and oregano. Dill works absolutely spectacularly in this dish as well. You know what? I love it being super herby, so I'm going to put all of those herbs in. And they will soften and they will infuse the flavour of the yoghurt as the days go by. So definitely one to keep in the fridge because it only gets better with time. And then 2 other ingredients. You can actually add quite a few ingredients to this yoghurt. This is kind of in its most simplest form. I'm also going to add in some sumac. So sumac is like a Middle Eastern berry. And so they dry it out and they grind it up. And I've also just got some salt in there because, again, everything tastes a lot better when we add a bit of salt, doesn't it? And you pretty much add in a little bit of olive oil and mix it around. The longer you leave it, the better, because the flavours will infuse even more. But I'm sure you are going to try this and I'm sure you're going to say it tastes amazing just the way it is. But obviously, as you leave it, it'll just keep getting better. So once you've made your yoghurt, grab a pita bread, pop a bit of yoghurt on there, straight down the hatch. It's amazing.
Would you be able to share with us your best entertaining Barbie tips?
Okay, so there's so many ways that you can enjoy a barbecue even more when you are entertaining. So for example, with these pitas, you can even get people to make their own if you want. Say, here's a pita bread, pop a bit of mince on there, fold it over and chuck it on the barbie. Otherwise, because it's done so quickly, we've got our friends together, we've got food kind of going on and coming off the barbecue, and it becomes quite a communal situation. And people just, trust me, whenever I do these pitas, people always keep kind of strategically coming back to check in if there's any more. But in terms of you cooking it on the barbecue, it's a social thing, it's an active thing. It gets you outside, and as we know, cooking on the barbecue tastes better. So always make sure that you've got your barbie nice and hot when you're going to put food on there. I always use charcoal. I prefer charcoal cooking. The flavour and the heat distribution is far better. And it seems daunting, but it really is not. It is a very straightforward process. It's almost as simple as lighting a gas barbecue, honestly. You just put charcoal in a barbecue or a pit, or whatever you can find that's safe. You use fire lighters and put them in amongst the charcoal. I always use natural fire lighters when I am cooking with food or using the fire for cooking with food, because it doesn't taint the taste of the food either. So it's a much better option for you. And then once it's ignited, once the charcoal is white and glowing red, you know you're good to cook. And you will infuse the most incredible flavours into your food every single time.
Well, thank you so much again, Sarah. Yeah, I'm looking forward to trying this myself, so I'm excited.
My pleasure.
If you'd like to learn more about Sarah Kiryshin and healthy food for today's busy people, please visit her webpage on our website at healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. And that's all for today, and we'll see you next week. If you'd like to know more about our show, please like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel.